1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, October the 17th, 2023. The committee is resuming its study of Canadian businesses in supply chains and global markets. Before we begin, I need to remind all members and other meeting participants in the room of the following important preventative measures. To prevent disruptive and potentially harmful audio feedback incidents that can cause injuries, all in-person participants are reminded to keep their earpieces away from the microphones at all times. As indicated in the communique from the Speaker to all members on Monday, April 29th, the following measures have been taken to help prevent audio feedback incidents. All earpieces have been replaced by a model which greatly reduces the probability of audio feedback. The new earpieces are black in color where the former ones were gray. By default, all unused earpieces will be unplugged at the start of a meeting. When you are not using your earpiece, please place it face down on the middle of the sticker for this purpose that you will find on the table as indicated. Please consult the cards on the table for guidelines to prevent audio feedback incidents. The room layout has also been adjusted to increase the distance between microphones and reduce the chance of feedback from an ambient earpiece. These measures are in place so that we can conduct our business without interruption and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreter. Thank you all for your cooperation. We have with us today from KC Recycling, Pete Stamper, Chief Executive Officer. From Pacific Economic Development Agency of Canada, Nania Sloan, Vice President, Programs and Partners. Port Alberni Port Authority, Zoran Kanespik, President and Chief Executive Officer by video conference. Prairies Economic Development Canada, Anup Kapoor, Assistant Deputy Minister, Policy and Strategic Direction. Vancouver Port Authority, Airport Authority, Jason Say, Manager, Cargo Development Partnerships by video conference. And from Western Grain Elevator Association, Wade Sokovich, Executive Director by video conference. Thank you all very much. Our apologies for the delay. We will start with questions of statements of up to 5 minutes, please. Mr. Stamper, would you please go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, a little background on myself. Originally from Detroit, my profession is growing industrial companies into growing markets. Previously, I have led a construction tool business in Belgium, a medical device company in Sweden, and an automotive test manufacturer in Seattle. I have a master's in business from Harvard Business School and a master's of engineering from the University of Michigan. And I immigrated to Canada in 2019 and will be a proud Canadian citizen this year. KC Recycling is the only lead battery recycler in the Pacific Northwest. The closest alternatives are 2,000 kilometers away in Minneapolis and Los Angeles. Canada has 2 other recycling plants in Mississauga and Montreal. Lead batteries are the most recycled product on Earth, with over 99% recycled and new batteries containing 80% recycled content. However, we are closing recycling plants at a rate of 1 per year and only have 12 remaining in the US and Canada. KC Recycling produces 40,000 tons of lead and 3,000 tons of polypropylene annually. As an industry, we export almost all of this recycled material to the US and Canada, or US and Asia. Lead batteries are critical to the electrification of Canada and are booming, replacing propane in forklifts, golf carts, and floor sweepers. And huge banks of lead batteries provide backup power for critical infrastructure, including hospitals, telecom, and solar facilities. In 5 years, KC Recycling has nearly doubled production to keep up with the booming demand for lead. There are 3 opportunities for policy to support this critical industry. First and foremost, stop the export of used Canadian batteries. Canada is spending billions of dollars to build a new lithium battery circular economy. Northvolt, E3, Li-Cycle are examples. This is important, and we must continue to do this. We must also support the existing lead battery circular economy, which took decades to build. Lead is a battery metal. Lead is a critical mineral for electrification. Therefore, used lead batteries are a critical Canadian resource. And used batteries are hazardous waste per the Basel Convention. Batteries exported to non-OECD countries are melted in shocking burn pits, which has resulted in childhood lead poisoning around the globe. Despite this, Vancouver has become a major exporter to Asia, forcing KC Recycling to import over half of our batteries from the United States. The same is happening here in Eastern Canada. I ask that the ECCC reject export permits when we have domestic capacity available. This is actually how Australia has implemented the Basel Convention to protect their industry. I ask that the CBSA inspect shipments from known exporters to stop the illegal export to non-OECD countries. And I ask you to enforce hazardous waste regulations and close unpermitted exporting warehouses. The exporters are well known. There are only a handful, and they could be addressed today. Second, add lead to Canada's critical minerals list. As you now know, lead is a vital battery metal, just like lithium, cobalt, graphite, and nickel, which are all on the list. The primary Canadian source of lead is from recycled lead batteries. Due to the hazardous nature of recycling lead, it is difficult to access traditional sources of funding. Banks and insurance companies run from my company. Having the financial backing of the Canadian government will enable rapid growth and innovation. Third, expand recycled content legislation to industrial plastic. KC Recycling is a major producer of recycled polypropylene, number 5 on the little triangle on all plastic products. Unfortunately, many plastic manufacturers will not purchase recycled plastic because virgin sources are less expensive. However, you have already fixed this issue in plastic packaging by mandating recycled content for pop bottles and plastic bags, which are number 1s and 2s. However, polypropylene is not a packaging plastic and is mostly used in industrial applications like automotive parts, buckets, and sheeting. As a result, polypropylene has the lowest recycling rate of the plastics at about 5%. I encourage you to expand legislation to these industrial applications. On behalf of the 75 hardworking employees at KC Recycling, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stamper. Ms. Sloan, please, for up to 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for inviting me to appear today. My name is Nana Sloan, and I'm the Vice President of Programs and Partners at Pacific Economic Development Canada, or PacificCan. While I'm in Ottawa with you today, I'm usually BC-based, and I would like to acknowledge that PacificCan's work takes place on the traditional territories of more than 200 First Nations, whose contributions enrich our environment, our economy, communities, and identity. PacificCan is a new federal development agency established in 2021 to focus on economic development in British Columbia. Tout comme notre agence sur PrairiesCan, nous avons été lancés et construits.
Along with our sister agency, PrairiesCan, we were launched and built out of the legacy of Western economic diversification.
Regions they serve, from 8 locations across BC. Notre travail contribue à une prospérité.
Our work contributes to enduring prosperity for all British Columbians.
Our work contributes to enduring prosperity for all British Columbians. Through investments, pathfinding, convening, and advice, we pursue 4 goals: high-quality jobs, globally successful businesses, competitive industries, and an inclusive economy. Exports are critical to advancing all 4 of these goals. In 2022, BC exported over $100 billion worth of goods and services internationally, with almost 80% of those goods being exported to the US, China, and Japan. Service exports from BC have been growing, and in 2022 accounted for over 30% of BC's exports. In BC, small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs, represent 99% of all businesses. However, they accounted for only 26% of our merchandise exports, again in 2022. Given this reality, we focus on helping small and medium-sized enterprises grow, export, and participate in global value chains. This, in turn, helps to create quality jobs and economic benefits in BC and in Canada. We support SMEs in 3 ways. First, we work with innovative companies directly, providing loan-type supports so they can expand, improve their productivity, and export. Second, we invest in industry and other ecosystem organizations who in turn provide tailored expertise and services. Third, we work with federal, provincial, and local partners, including the Trade Commissioner Service, to pathfind and provide joined-up supports where it makes sense. I'd like to give you a few examples. First, Clarius Mobile Health. Clarius creates cost-effective and portable ultrasound scanners. This technology, which is now hitting several international markets, is providing real-time imaging at clinicians' fingertips and thus improving patient care while reducing healthcare costs. PacificCan's first investment in Clarius helped the company gain access to South American and Middle Eastern markets. In fact, they were able to access 10 new international markets and secured $18 million worth of new sales. Our second investment with Clarius is just getting started. And it will help the company to access additional U.S. and Asian markets. Clarius' success also resulted in the company becoming one of 8 Canadian companies to be accepted into the federal Global Hypergrowth Program, which is designed to help medium-sized companies grow to become larger Canadian anchor firms. The program is administered by ISED along with partners including Pacifican, and it helps companies pursue international expansion. The second project I'd highlight for you is the Export Navigator program, which helps to provide companies with the services they need to become export ready. We co-fund this program with the province of British Columbia. It's delivered by Small Business BC, which provides tailored services. These supports are complementary, but usually at an earlier stage than those provided by the Trade Commissioner Service. The program connects participating small businesses with locally based advisors or navigators who help them start to export. One of the companies the Export Navigator helped is Okanagan Crush Pad. Through the advice they received from their navigator, they were able to expand their reach and sell into new markets in the UK and Scandinavia. Finally, I'll highlight the Integrated Marketplace Initiative. With significant investment from Pacifican and the province of BC, as well as the participation of partners such as the Vancouver Airport Authority and the ports of Prince Rupert and Vancouver, this initiative works to de-risk adoption of domestic innovations. By linking talented local companies with large organizations or customers, participating companies gain reference customers in BC, which can help them achieve sales in key markets abroad. The institutional participants and partners function as testbeds and buyers, accelerating their adoption of innovation and making them more competitive. I'll conclude my opening remarks here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Much on to Mr. Nevisic, please, for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you for the opportunity, and nice to see you again. Thank you for the opportunity to present our project. So, Port Alberni Port Authority is pursuing a strategic opportunity to develop a new container transshipment hub in the Alberni Inlet to enhance capacity and increase resiliency and environmental benefits throughout the Asia-Pacific Gateway. The Port Alberni Transshipment Hub, or PAT, as we like to call it, is envisioned to become a modern, fully automated container terminal able to efficiently handle any size vessels, including new ultra-large container ships, 20,000 TEUs and beyond. This project would create one of the largest container terminals in Canada. PAT is premised on a hub and spoke transshipment model, which has been used successfully throughout Europe and Asia. The primary focus of PAT as the hub is to support the container handling facilities, the spokes in the Salish Sea area, covering the lower mainland and Puget Sound. The dedicated cellular barges will deliver pre-sorted cargo at the right time and at the closest point to the end destination. In addition, PAT conceptually envisions servicing Vancouver Island's captive market and ever-growing business and population base. PAT also provides an opportunity to service coastal trade, as envisioned PAT will truly expand and maximize the use of our marine highway. The PAT will service a catchment area of over 13 million people within 500-kilometer radius and significantly enable growth and development of the Pacific Northwest coast through its spokes. It will also unlock better land utilization for working and living and will revolutionize shipping, logistics, and trading on the West Coast. In the current logistics paradigm, distribution centers are primarily concentrated in Alberta, situated over 1,000 kilometers away from the tidal waters. This spatial disparity leads to congested railways and challenges in efficient cargo movement. Currently, a vast amount of goods are necessarily hauled back and forth by rail or truck, and a large amount of ships are forced to stay an extended amount of time at anchorages in the Salish Sea area. This adds to congestion, logistical complexities, and negative socio-economic impact for the gateway. PAT presents a viable solution by providing a closer, more efficient distribution point, thereby reducing strain on existing transportation infrastructure. The lower mainland of British Columbia grapples with persistent truck traffic and congestion on its streets. The influx of products, coupled with limited transportation arteries, contributed to gridlock and inefficiencies in the movement of goods. PAT offers a strategic alternative by diverting cargo transportation away from the road networks and utilizing our scarcely used marine highway by short sea shipping goods to the doorstep of the next node in the supply chain. Vancouver Island, home to PAT, boasts a unique demographic landscape with a population close to 900,000 people. Despite its size, the island faces significant challenges in moving goods on and off its shores. To alleviate these challenges and foster economic growth, Vancouver Island has been designated as a foreign trade zone, offering incentives and benefits to businesses engaged in international trade. Even with a designation, Vancouver Island is still significantly impeded due to its inability to cost efficiently move goods on and off the island. PAT can contribute significantly to reducing environmental impact, mitigating climate change, and improving air quality. Additionally, the reduction in wear and tear on transportation infrastructure further enhances environmental sustainability, preserving natural resources and reducing maintenance costs over the long term. In terms of quantifiable benefits, PAT strengthens Canada's gateway resilience and stability while fostering innovation in marine transportation. By enhancing competitiveness and providing more options for port users, PAT facilitates the development optimal utilization of both new and existing port facilities. Furthermore, it presents an opportunity to capture more of the 30 million TEUs of Pacific trade within its reach and establish coastwise transportation link, thereby expanding trade opportunities and bolstering economic ties. Overall, in conclusion, PAT represents an evolutionary step in our supply chain into Asia-Pacific Gateway 2.0. Its multifaceted benefits underscore its significance as a transformative force in Canadian trade. By leveraging cutting-edge technology, a strategic location, and operating model, PAT not only addresses current supply chain challenges, but also paves the way for a sustainable, efficient, and prosperous future for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kapoor, for up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm pleased to contribute to committee's study on Canadian businesses in supply chain and global markets from perspective of my department, Prairies Economic Development Canada, known as PrairieScan. PrairieScan est l'une des 7 agences de développement régional du Canada et son mandat.
As one of Canada's 7 regional development agencies, PrairieScan's mandate is to grow and diversify the economy of the prairies.
Innovation and community economic development in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, a region that is responsible for about a quarter of Canada's economy. We take pride in being place-based, which means being right there on the ground, working hand in hand with businesses and stakeholders. With
11 service locations strategically positioned in throughout the region, we ensure that our support is tailored to the specific needs of the communities we serve.
Through our ongoing programs, such as Regional Economic Growth Through Innovation, or REGI, a program that aims to create well-paying jobs, support business growth, and develop regional ecosystems for entrepreneurship and innovation. For instance, through REGI's business scale-up and productivity stream, we support high-growth SMEs as they scale up their operations, produce innovative goods and services or technologies, and are looking to export. Un exemple d'investissement est Elmer's Manufacturing.
An example of our investment is Elmer's Manufacturing, an agriculture equipment manufacturer based in rural Manitoba.
Innovated their manufacturing processes, which resulted in a 150% increase in revenues, 200 jobs created, and a significant growth in exports. Their products are sold in many countries around the world, such as US, Australia, Czech Republic, and South Africa. In addition, we recognize the growing significance of hydrogen production in Alberta. That's why PrairieScan supported Edmonton Global, an organization focused on making Edmonton region the choice location for global investments in strengthening regional hydrogen supply chain and labor market. In fact, our latest annual departmental results report for 2022-23 shows our funding programs help to contribute creation of close to 15,000 jobs, more than $440 million in export sales growth, and over $1.2 billion in revenue growth for the companies we supported. Growth in export sales is an important consideration in selecting the projects the department supports. Now a bit about our Prairies region. Much of our region economy is export-oriented. Les Prairies sont les plus grands producteurs de potash au monde.
The Prairies are the world's largest producer of potash, second largest producer of uranium, and fourth largest producer of crude oil.
Largest helium deposits and are home to half of Canada's farms, covering over 80% of Canada's farmland, an area equivalent in the size of the landmass of Spain. The Prairies region exports oil, natural gas, renewable hydropower, cereals, grains, pulses, services, medicines, technology, and more. While our export of Western Canadian goods extend primarily to United States, 80% of our exports are valued at about $200 billion, and to China at 5.2%, at close to $12.7 billion. Our international exports are valued at $246 billion in 2023. That is more than a third of Canada's overall international exports of goods by value. Over the past decade, the total value of annual merchandise of exports from Prairies has increased by 65%, from $149 billion to $246 billion in nominal dollar terms. The bulk of Prairie exports leave the country through oil and gas pipelines, by rail and trucks destined to ports in BC, and to consumers in US. In closing, let us recognize the potential of Prairies region as an economic powerhouse on a global stage. With our abundant natural resources, innovative industries, and resilient communities, the Prairies stand ready to supply the world with energy, agriculture, commodities, clean technology, and more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On to Mr. Say for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, honourable members, for the chance to appear before you today. I'm pleased to join the committee remotely from my office at the Vancouver International Airport, located on the traditional, unceded, and continuously occupied territory of the Musqueam people. YVR is a strategic trade and infrastructure asset for Canada that plays a crucial role as a reliable gateway to the Indo-Pacific, both for passengers and cargo. In this regard, YVR competes against airports along the U.S. West Coast, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and Los Angeles to attract airline carriers and investment. Air cargo has proven its value time and time again, with dramatic examples over the course of the pandemic. Air carriers significantly modified operations to move more goods when passenger travel restrictions were in place. And in 2022, when the atmospheric river hit British Columbia, YVR was the only mode of transportation that remained fully operational both during and after the significant rainfall. The pandemic has also challenged long-held industry assumptions regarding growth, globalization, technology, and labor. Today, as our industry has emerged from the pandemic, those changes can be summarized under the heading, more with less. Passenger and cargo volumes have almost fully recovered, but this demand is being served with fewer aircraft and fewer routes as the industry rebuilds balance sheets and returns to profitability. Cargo volumes are generally a good indicator of economic conditions, but challenged recently by high inventory levels held by retailers as consumers shifted spending towards services. While the air cargo market has softened in the past year and all cargo operators have thus adjusted investment strategies in response, we believe the long-term fundamentals for air cargo remain strong. 2023 was an excellent year for cargo at YVR, despite the overall slowing of the economy and cargo trends. While U.S. airports generally recovered more quickly post-COVID, recent results have been weaker, while YVR's recovery has accelerated. Compared to 2019, YVR is up 5% versus 2% for Los Angeles, while Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco were all down. Early numbers indicate an opportunity that we may reach record levels in 2024. The strength of YVR's cargo operation and the role in Canada's supply chain remain a key focus for us, and the investments we are making to evolve YVR into a multimodal hub for trade investment will be transformative for the region and indeed all Canadians. YVR opened 2 new airside cargo warehouses in 2023, allowing GTA Donata and Cargojet to expand their operations. We also completed a proof of concept for a truck slot booking system with partner Cali Logistics last winter, using digital technology to improve cargo efficiency. Purolator, Aerostream, and Menzies are reviewing the technology for potential use. Construction on the first phase of our new South Cargo expansion project also kicked off in 2023. This $150 million investment will boost YVR's cargo capacity by 160,000 tons, representing a $22 billion increase in Canada's trade potential annually. I would like to express our gratitude for the support of the Government of Canada provided for this project through the National Trade Corridor Fund. However, challenges remain with Canada's trade infrastructure if we are going to seize the opportunities that we see 20 to 30 years from now. First, YVR agrees with the testimony that the Canadian Chamber of Commerce put forward to this committee in February. Billions of dollars of private and public investment are needed to address Canada's trade infrastructure deficit. While government isn't solely responsible, a federal commitment to major strategic long-term investments is key. Secondly, we continue to advocate the federal government reinvest airport rent back into airport infrastructure, allowing airports to reinvest the $400 million that the federal government currently takes out of the airport system each year would create an annual economic impact of $612 million, creating nearly 2,400 jobs with an average salary per job of $79,700 and contribute approximately $160 million in GDP. Finally, government must continue investing in industries that create more cargo-eligible goods, such as in advanced manufacturing and pharmaceuticals. I will conclude my remarks there and look forward to the discussion. Thank you again to the committee for studying this important topic and taking the time to hear from stakeholders across the country. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. And our last witness is Mr. Sokovich for 5 minutes.
The Western Grain, thank you. The Western Grain Elevator Association is a national association of grain companies that handle over 90% of our country's bulk grain shipments. Grain transportation makes up roughly 20% of total railway revenue each year, making the WJ members some of the largest users of Canada's railways and marine ports. Our thanks to you, Madam Chair, and the members of the committee for inviting us on this very important topic. Canada's ability to compete in global markets hinges on our ability to rail product from the interior of our country to tidewater ports. The efficacy of rail service is therefore a critical component to the success of our supply chains. Air travelers in Canada often experience plane cancellations and delays, missed connections, lost luggage, exorbitant charges, lackluster travel options. Now imagine there was only one airline available at an airport. That's our reality in rail service. Above all else, financial accountability and enhanced competitive access regulations for the railways for service performance failures is required. Monetary penalties payable to the shipper for poor service would incentivize railways to put plans in place to avoid them. In addition, measures like extended interswitching that inserts competition creates a threat of loss of business that will drive better rail service. We also need to recognize the importance of marine ports and vessel traffic to the national economy. With a growing crop, we face the challenge of moving more product each year. This is not a situation of trying to find ways to do more with less. In practical terms, we need to find a way to have more vessels ready to load in the Port of Vancouver primarily. It's Canada's largest working port, designed for commerce, and must first and foremost be viewed through that lens. Instead, we have Bill C-33 that is going to create a regulated system to restrict the presence of vessels in Canada's ports. Regulators and parliamentarians currently see the presence of vessels in ports and the operation of terminal facilities as a negative. On one hand, we're told that Canada wants the economic benefit from port exports to worldwide markets, but on the other hand, we're told there are too many vessels in ports, and that activities associated with normal vessel loading is a problem. Bill C-33 only addresses the symptom of vessel wait times, ignoring the root cause of inadequate rail service. If the federal government intends on passing legislation that positively impacts supply chains, it must primarily look at rail car supply from railways versus rail car demand from exporters on a week-to-week basis and introduce legislation that disciplines railways to meet that demand. Opportunity for Canada's exports must be set by customers, not by railways. Labor disruptions for railway and port services are also hampering Canada's ability to reliably deliver to customers. Canada is about to face a strike on both national railways at the same time, and the consequences are going to be devastating. When strikes or lockouts occur at railways and ports, huge swaths of the economy suffer, not just those in the bargaining process. In a competitive environment, customers can find other options to minimize disruptions. Since railways and ports in the grain sector are singular options, the same threat of loss of business is not present. There are no competitive alternatives. Whether it's wheat and oats for bakeries or pasta and breakfast cereal manufacturers, or canola and soybean for vegetable oil, our products are the basis for everyday staple foods. Even short disruptions of supply chains can affect product availability and price, something the pandemic has demonstrated the world over. In this respect, the flow of essential goods necessary for the maintenance and preservation of Canada's domestic food and feed supply and global food security is required even when labor disruptions occur. The requirement for a maintenance of services agreement to be in place prior to a labor stoppage would become automatic with Bill C-58. We believe that parliamentarians should explicitly require these agreements to include movement of essential food products. The National Supply Chain Task Force identified that over the next 50 years, investments of $4.4 trillion in marine and transportation infrastructure will be required to meet projected growth in population. There is a critical need to step up investment in port infrastructure in Vancouver, especially to address fluidity, particularly with the addition of tanker traffic. There is also an undeniable need for Canada to scrutinize its regulatory and permitting framework, which is unnecessarily rigid, redundant, antiquated, and inhibits commercial investments to improve supply chains. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, Mr. General for 5 minutes, or 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to hopefully get to three witnesses today. We'll start with Casey Recycling, then off to Pacific Economic Development, and then back to the airport. Before I do, Mr. Snapper, early congratulations on becoming a Canadian citizen. Exciting time. I suspect you'll get a letter from your member of parliament also congratulating you. If they don't, just come back to this committee, and I'm sure you'll have many people will happy to congratulate you again. But walk me through kind of what you said at the beginning there, the life cycle of a battery. I think that that was shocking, and I get you only had 5 minutes to kind of get that out. But you basically said that a battery, when it's recycled and shipped off to a different country, I'm assuming Asian country, not the U.S., but Asian country, and then it's turned into melted in burn pits, and then there's the impact of that on kids and kids' health. I'll give you a few more minutes, maybe just expand on some of that, because that sounds pretty serious if you ask me.
Yeah, I'd be happy to show you a video of it if you'd like as well. But what happens is the last batteries that don't get recycled properly get recycled informally. And these are sort of pop-up battery recycling operations in sheds in developing countries. So the video I would show you comes from Dhaka, Bangladesh, and it's an actual news story where they're talking about the industry and filming it. And there's 100 battery recycling plants around the city of Dhaka. And they literally just throw the batteries into a fire and they blow air in it until it melts down to molten lead. And then that molten lead is put into cast and then sold to the same smelters that I sell the lead that comes from the batteries recycled in Trail.
So, but this comes from like these are Canadian batteries being sent?
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, the reason batteries are exported out of North America is because we keep closing plants, because they were originally built in cities back before we knew lead was hazardous. It was only found to be hazardous in the 70s, and so these plants were built in cities, and then we find out that it's poisoning playgrounds and schools and things like that. And so they get closed in developed countries, and then there's no capacity being built anywhere here. Yeah. So that's how they get recycled. So Vancouver, we probably get 5% of the scrap batteries from the Lower Mainland. 95% are exported to Asia. Many are exported legally to Korea, for example. But many are then re-exported or end up in a country like Bangladesh or Africa. The United Nations says 50% of the world's children have toxic levels of lead in their blood as a result of informal battery recycling.
Wow. I wish we had more time just to explore that, Madam Chair. Going to quickly move on. I think I'm going to skip to the airport quickly. Just because I want to, Miss Jason, if I can, ask you a quick question. You talked about the fewer aircraft and fewer routes and the amount of airport fees. Are you familiar with the Supply Chain Task Force Report 2022?
No, which one are you referring to?
It's the National Supply Chain Task Force Report, Action, Collaboration, Transformation. I would hope if you're testifying at this committee, you'd be familiar with this. This is, I can show it up, I don't know the prop, but I know you can see it, Madam Chair. And in that, the report, page 19, it lists that one of the recommendations was to waive 50% of airport rent payments on a short-term basis to enable airport authorities to invest in capital improvements that enhance transportation supply chain reliability. Is that something that you and your organization would support?
Yeah, I mean, we've had an infrastructure deficit in the past, and so speaking from the cargo side, we compete against other airports along the West Coast, and to the extent that the other West Coast airports along the U.S., they are actually infrastructure constrained at the present time, being sort of located along the...
Just going to jump in because I'm trying to get the other guys too, but so you would support the 50% airport reduction fee. Have you seen that implemented from the government or not yet? Yes or no?
We have not seen that yet.
Okay, because it was listed as immediate in terms of the timing of the task force report, which goes, we all had other witnesses at this committee indicate that they have also not seen it, including the supply chain task force office. So again, I'm hoping that this can be part of the report when we go back and submit it to the House. Last question, I now want to get to Ms. Sloan. Thank you for your testimony and thank you for being here today. The Vancouver Port strike, that was a major, the labor disruption was a major impact on small and medium-sized businesses. Would you agree?
Thank you. Yes, we did hear from some of our clients with respect to disruption, yes.
Perfect. So in like the last 30 seconds, I have another labor disruption of any kind would also be of a significant impact to your small and medium enterprises. Then I assume the answer would be yes for that as well.
Yes, any kind of disruption like that can have impacts for small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Meow for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here today, including those online, to share the West Coast perspective on this study. And first, I'd like to direct my question to Ms. Sloan, Pacific Can. Can you tell the committee what programs or investment has Pacific Can made to improve our supply chain resilience over these years?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll maybe talk about a particular program first and then come back to an example. So the Business Scale-Up and Productivity Program, as we call it, supports high-growth businesses that have the opportunity to grow, that are growing and are producing innovative goods and services or technologies. The program has been operating for a number of years and has supported many companies, almost 100 companies, and provided almost $200 million worth of funding to companies. BSP focuses on companies with a desire to scale through export growth, through productivity, and other types of expansion. And the program has achieved significant results in terms of new export sales. So the program is sector agnostic, and so it supports companies across a range of sectors. There have been some examples where we've been able to support companies doing work that is related to or adjacent to supply chain and supply chain resilience. The example I noted in my opening remarks of the Integrated Marketplace Initiative is one of those examples. And we have a number of partners who are airports, ports, et cetera. And the idea with that initiative is to support smaller companies, SMEs, who have innovative products or services that can be tested with, at airports or ports with supply chain partners, and that testing then can lead to greater efficiency of those organizations, as well as then opportunities for SMEs. So that's one way we support this.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And what kind of programs or investment has Pacific Can made to assist and aid BC companies in diversifying their markets internationally or our economy more broadly?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe I'll give another example of a project. So there are many, but one I would highlight would be support that Pacific Can provided to Abcelera through this BSP program. So Abcelera is in the life sciences and pharmaceuticals business, and they have achieved significant export growth, roughly $1.4 billion of export sales growth, as well as attracting significant foreign direct investment through the company. Pacific Can has supported Abcelera in scaling up its therapeutic antibody discovery partnerships and done that through marketing, business development support, intellectual property licensing, and support for expansion globally. And more specifically, the project that we supported helped the company to improve its U.S. and European presence, increasing its visibility and its partnerships with pharmaceutical companies. So in the U.S., for example, Abcelera has developed the first U.S. FDA-approved antibody treatment for the virus that caused the COVID. So that's just an example of one company, again, that is benefiting from support under the BSP program from Pacific Can and diversifying its partnerships, its services, its products, and having success overseas.
Thank you for that. And next question I would like to direct to the YVR Vancouver Airport Authority. And with this opportunity, I also want to congratulate YVR for being named the best airport in North America through the Star Trek World Airport Award. And this is the only airport that has received 14 times being named the best airport in North America. And Jason, it's always good to see you here. Through the early this year, we've announced the National Trade Corridor funding for cargo expansion. And in your remark, you mentioned about the work that's being started right now. Could you please share with the committee on how a program like this will strengthen our current supply chain?
Great. Yeah, thank you for the question. So as an airport, in terms of our main competitors, as I mentioned earlier, it is those traditional U.S. West Coast airports, most notably Seattle, Portland, and to a lesser extent, San Francisco and LAX as well. But most of these airports reside basically right on the ocean front or near the shoreline. So from a land development opportunity perspective, it's quite constrained. So we have a pretty unique opportunity in terms of developing some additional cargo infrastructure, both an apron and an airside warehouse over the next several years, to really proactively go after the key trade lane, that's Asia to North America, and actually, in fact, the Americas in general, so we can actually proactively build our market share to the economic benefit of our local community and potentially the rest of Canadians as well.
Thank you, Jason. And with the last 20 seconds here, can you share with the community more about what is YVR doing to develop land, especially with the scarcity of industrial land happening right now in Metro Vancouver? How is this going to benefit the Canada supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, so as I say, that is a challenge for the Lower Mainland in terms of industrial land availability. However, at the airport, we have some ability to unlock some additional lands both south of the terminal as well as north of the terminal. So both of those projects we are working on today. Again, work has already started at the airport south side, and then shortly thereafter, development will begin north of the airport as well.
Great, thank you. My time's up.
Mr. Savard-Tremblay for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all of our witnesses for being with us today. My question is for the Port Alberni Port Authority. During the Vancouver port strike, apparently, a number of economic actors have asked the government to put in special legislation which would have forced a return to work. That was not the case This time, for example, in the Port of Montreal, we had a vote on that in the Legislative Assembly. But Canada has a sad record with respect to the forced return to work of workers by calling on special legislation. So how do you think it's possible to both ensure the protection of our supply chains and the rights of workers?
Thank you for the question, Simon. So the best way, in my opinion, is as Mr. Sopkovich mentioned, there are certain goods that they have to make or have to be made essential. I mean, our gateway has to be has to maintain its fluidity and be open. So some areas have to be designated as essential. On the other hand, the labor and the workforce should be allowed as well to strike and also exercise their rights. So it's always about the balance. Finding the balance in the port infrastructure. Sorry, in the industry. But the gateway, in my opinion, is very important to keep our fluidity of the gateway and find a solution where port needs to be kept open. I hope I was able to answer the question.
Parce que, par exemple, on a reçu à la fin de
For instance, at the end of 2023, as part of our studies, we welcomed a representative of the longshoremen in Montreal. He indicated that the reason why there were issues leading to strikes in Vancouver and Montreal is that there are no true decision makers around the bargaining table. For instance, he was referring to the maritime shipping lines and the operators. Do you share his finding?
To a degree, both Montreal and the West Coast as well are represented by Maritime Employers Association. And a membership of such is, I guess, voluntary. It's not mandatory. So some shippers are part of it, but in most of the time they are not. It is a cost to the operator. So I think all the players should be at the table. So yes, I would agree that we should support having shippers at the table as well.
Merci. Maintenant, parlez-moi un petit peu.
Could you speak about the main challenges that you see in the next 5 to 10 years with respect to the port facilities? Do you believe that we're ready to face these challenges?
I believe as well, I'll refer to Mr. Sopkovich mentioned that a National Supply Chain Office has identified that we are short some, I would say, a couple of $1 trillion in port infrastructure investment for the future. Yes, we are very much behind in having adequate port infrastructure, transportation infrastructure to move forward. We are falling behind by day. And we have to look at innovative models, and that's exactly what I was proposing for. Build a think outside of the box and build and use our marine highway, and really focus on investing in a port infrastructure and transportation infrastructure, because we still have just one railway going up and down the Fraser Canyon, and if anything happens to that railway, we are in trouble. So we have to have a more, I would say, serious, or maybe not the right word, but we have to be really focused and identify a way to provide continued funding to enable our port infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, but ports in particular, to move the goods on and off our shores. That's the only way we'll be able to grow. And I believe our railway is saturated as it is right now, coming from the West Coast. And we have an opportunity, but and the National Supply Chain Task Office is really a good start. But I believe also National Supply Chain Office needs to have a means as well to move things forward. So it all comes down to funding. but we have to put some serious money behind and really evolve, especially for the West Coast I'm talking about, into Asia Pacific Gateway 2.0, where we include the whole of West Coast as an enabler of moving Canadian goods as we trade with Asia.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cirillo, for the remaining few minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and it's been a very interesting day today, and unfortunately we only have 6 minutes left, so I'm sorry about that, because each of you we could have had this full hour for. So with that in mind, that I only have 6 minutes here, I just wanted to share with you all that the quotes and the things that you say influence recommendations that this committee makes and can influence what the government does. So my first question is to Mr. Stamper, and then hopefully I can speak to Mr. Say at the Vancouver Airport Authority. Mr. Stamper, you mentioned that there is product going out of the country that we need, and we're bringing in the same product from other places. So my question to you is that was an Australian model that you spoke about. How does that Australian model work? How do they know their available domestic capacity?
Excellent question. So it happened in Australia and Japan, where they nearly lost their entire battery recycling industry because essentially brokers are buying the batteries and selling them to these lower jurisdictions, right? And the way it's implemented is because batteries are hazardous waste, you must have an export permit to export it. In Australia and Japan, that triggers a public process for comment. And of course, they invite all the recyclers that are left to comment on it, and they say, I object to that permit because I have capacity to recycle that here.
Okay, and what's the timing on that? Like, is it a long process, a short process?
I don't know the answer to that. I know in the Canadian process, when we apply for an export permit, it takes maybe 2 to 3 months from the time we file to when it's granted.
And does that seem a reasonable time frame?
Yeah, it's fine. It could be shorter. It would be nicer, but it's a year-long permit, so I think 2 or 3 months is fine to then have a year-long permit.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I appreciate Mr. Stamper and the other witnesses that talked today about how to support SMEs and to be an SME and to be growing. So I wanted to go to Mr. Say at Vancouver Airport Authority. And Jason, thank you so much for the tour that I was recently on about the expansion. So my question is, have the new facilities and enhanced systems at the Vancouver International Airport improved the efficiency and reliability of Canada's international and domestic supply chains?
So the development that I allude to, that's currently underway, so it's not completed yet. Having said that, as I alluded to in my introduction, so we did do a proof of concept in terms of looking at some digital solutions to improve the efficiency of our cargo infrastructure assets. So one of that was like a truck slot booking system, which we tried out with various players. They can increase throughput and reduce carbon footprint from some of the trucks. So that is something we're continuing to socialize with our community, and hopefully we'll mature that as we get into the completion of the Airport South project as well.
And I note that when I visit, there was a lot of talk about high value goods and how shipping goods by air, very much for cherries, crabs. There was a conversation about that. I'm wondering, how does an SME or a smaller player get into a competition, or how do they compete with the big players like Amazon that are using a lot of the capacity to move goods through airports? How can smaller players compete? Any thoughts for how the government could make that happen?
Well, as I sort of alluded to earlier, so when we attract additional all cargo services, one of the like at least right now is we're very dependent upon perishable products. So we need to diversify our export base to, for instance, more advanced manufacturing goods. And so, for instance, Pacific Can supporting AbCellera in the pharmaceutical space is actually a great example of that. We visited AbCellera as well. They don't export a lot currently by air, as it is today, but hopefully as they move forward, that builds a base for a bigger base for exports by air out of our market. And so that will attract additional services. And then we can also serve the local market, but also serve the transiting market through the rest of North America as well.
Thank you. So I'm going to take this opportunity to ask Mr. Kapoor my last question today. And you mentioned about the same ideas that we're trying to support smaller businesses around innovation and more opportunities. So I'd ask you if there's anything you'd like to have on the record today that you would like this committee to know about, and so that we can make sure that your voice is heard and the voice of the clients that you serve.
Yeah, I would like to indicate that the regional economic growth initiative that we are implementing in our region, it's a successful program. It has actually resulted in $1.3 billion in exports, the support we provided to SMEs, and it has resulted in creating jobs in our region.
And is there anything there that the federal government was involved in to help that growth or to help that move along? Is there any initiatives that happened that were federally driven, or that the federal government could have helped to enhance, to either increase or move faster?
I mean, I think the investment that we're making in critical drug initiative in Edmonton, where we're strengthening the supply chain to create our capacity to create critical medicines that are needed. Investments we're making in hydrogen economy, which is going to be the globally demand for hydrogen is going to increase significantly. In developing the supply chain and getting ready, like in case of Saskatchewan, we're thinking about how to strengthen the supply chain associated with the adoption of small modular reactors as nuclear industry takes hold from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective. So being there for SMEs as in advance of new industries taking foothold is important, so that our SMEs are ready to take on opportunities that come with opening of new sectors or new industries.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to our witnesses. Apologies again for the late start, but it is what it is. But we've appreciated your time and your contribution today. Thank you. Move adjournment of our meeting.